Yes, sir.
when you got there. The officers that you saw that weren't responding, that weren't actively trying to restrain him at the time because of everything in the air and their eyes, you didn't perceive that to be some kind of neglect of duty at the time?
No, sir.
Okay. It was just a fog of war.
Yes.
I want to back up and rewind a little bit. You said when the code blue went out, you were down, what floor did you work on?
On the first floor.
On the first floor. All right. And I want to establish what a code blue is. You've told us that it's either an inmate-officer altercation or an inmate-inmate altercation.
Yes, sir.
But it's a fight.
Yes.
And when that code blue goes out, all available officers have an obligation to respond.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in fact, if they don't respond, it could be neglect of duty.
Yes.
Okay. So it's their job to respond.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you know where Steve Jones was that afternoon when the code blue went out?
I'm not sure exactly. I want to say he was assigned to first floor.
Is that intake?
No, intake's on the lower level. Lower level.
So first floor for intake maybe?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And he was not DRT?
No, sir.
Okay. The training he got the once a year in service, correct?
Yes.
And then when he started, but he didn't get the extra training that the detention response team did?
No, sir.
Okay. And so the code blue comes out and it's your duty to respond.
Yes.
I'm going to kind of jump back to where we left off. You said you saw officers all around the place.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Freeman, covered in spray, eyes wide open, looked like it didn't even face him.
Yes, sir.
And he was coming straight towards you.
Yes.
Right. And you've told us today, as he's coming right towards you, again, I'm not being critical of anything you or the officers did. He's coming straight towards you, and you struck him.
Yes.
Right. And you didn't have pepper spray on you. You didn't have pepper spray on you, did you?
Yeah, I had it on me, yes.
Oh, you did? But we talk about the force continuum. In that situation, it was okay to strike him.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so even though they've shown this policy that says punching and kicking is prohibited, it also says unless there aren't reasonable alternatives, right?
Yes, the policy is a guideline that we all go by, but there are other circumstances where you're not going to always just be able to go straight by the policy.
Well, tell the jury about that. Tell them what you mean.
Well, in this case, like we have what we call a reactionary force and a planned use of force. If we do a planned use of force, we got time. We got time to look at the situation, get a team together, and get a plan to go up there and deal with it in an organized way. But when we have reactionary force, that means something just happened right then. You can't plan for it. Like if an inmate attacks you, you don't have time to plan to go do anything. You have to deal with it right then. So you're not going to always be able to just go straight down by what the policy says.
And the policy can say whatever, but the truth of the matter is, behind that door, through that tunnel in that jail, punches are sometimes thrown.
Yes, sir.
And kicks are sometimes used.
Yes.
And I think you use the phrase, you do what's necessary to get them under control and restraint, right?
Yes, sir.
That's the way it is. And back to your experience in the hall, he's coming at you, and it was necessary for you to hit him.
Yes, sir.
And he goes down, and we've got a video and evidence, but you try to handcuff him. You try to do your duty, right?
Yes.
And it's not that you chose not to do it, it's that you weren't able to do it, true?
No, sir. I was affected by the spray.
Right. And everybody was affected by that spray.
Objection, Your Honor. We just approached about it. He's asking a question which calls for speculation.
Everybody got affected by the spray. Obviously, I wasn't affected by the spray. So if you could narrow the question.
Did it appear to you that everyone that was involved in that incident was affected by the spray?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you're affected, and a lot of people are trying to gather themselves. And again, Inspector Green, I'm not being critical, but you're the highest ranking person in that jail, and you're responsible for everything that goes on. And even you had to leave the floor and try to get cleaned up because you were completely blind.
Yes, sir.
It was bad.
Yes.
And so when we sit here in this sterile courtroom and watch that video, there's no way to portray how bad it was that day in that hall, is it?
Not unless you was up there.
Because unless you were there, you just don't know.
Yes, sir.
And sticking with your personal experience in your shift, as you were down on the tree cleaning yourself up, you hear the code white.
Yes, sir.
And you come up there and you see Gershun Freeman, right?
Yes.
Are there people around him?
From what I could see, because I was still trying to get my eyes open, but I did see some people around him, yes.
Okay. They were observing him.
Yes, sir.
Do you know if they were working on him yet?
I don't.
Ms. Hunter's asked you about CPR. Someone needs medical attention, you call a code white, right?
Yes.
And medical comes to where you are. If
Yeah.
You can't take them to medical, right?
Yes.
When a code white is called, in the video, we've seen an oxygen tank being brought, some medical supplies being brought. Those are always brought to a code white call, correct?
Yes, sir.
Because they don't know what they're gonna find.
Right.
Okay. And Ms. Hunter's asking you about CPR. You get to the 5th floor and there's people around him. You wouldn't have ever jumped in and started trying to perform CPR, would you?
If he was unconscious, I mean, I don't know if he was unconscious or not.
But you didn't go check because there were other people around him.
Right. Yes, sir.
And you rely on your team.
Yes.
And, I mean, you're the highest ranking officer, but you didn't feel it necessary to go over there and personally check, because much like other professions and jobs, you've got a team and you rely on your team, right?
Yes, sir.
And if there's other people observing him, you trust that they're doing their jobs.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so at what point did you notice that he did need medical help? Did you stay up there?
I stayed up there and I was talking to Lieutenant Cleves and someone, I don't know who, but someone called the code white for medical to come.
Do you know who called 911?
I think it was Lieutenant Cleves.
Okay. Did you learn that Lieutenant Cleves had ordered the leg irons?
I didn't.
Okay. And we're gonna circle back to that in a few minutes, but when you got up to the 5th floor, that's not something that was discussed up there?
No, sir.
Okay, got it. Now, a couple of things I want to make at this point. When you were on the 4th floor, you never saw Steve Jones down there?
I didn't know.
Okay, so you can't tell this jury anything about what Steve Jones was doing on the floor?
No.
Other than video, of course.
Right.
And when you got up to the 5th floor, you didn't see Steve Jones with Gershun Freeman?
I didn't see him, no.
Okay. And so you can't testify personally regarding anything Steve Jones did on the 5th floor?
No, sir.
Well, now let's talk about the video. And I want to first talk to you about your opinions and how this came up back in June of 2003, okay?
Okay.
So this happened in October, I guess October 5th, 2022. How did you come to meet with them in June of 2023?
Through my attorney.
Okay, and that's Mr. Leslie Dallin?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How did you learn that they wanted to talk to you?
Through my attorney.
Okay. When did you go hire Leslie Bennett?
I'm not sure when. It may have been, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 months after the incident.
Because you were, even though you didn't do anything wrong, you were scared somebody was going to accuse you of doing something wrong?
Exactly.
Let's move on to your review of the fifth floor incident, okay? The first thing we see on that video is side view. He's come up the elevator and his back goes against the wall. And I think that was at about the 5:30, 5:34 mark they showed you. And that's when Gershun Freeman punches, I believe, Officer Perry, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and Perry and Lawson go after his upper body and they get him to the ground, right?
Yes, sir.
And Steven Jones is kicking his legs to make sure he doesn't get back up, right?
Yes.
Okay, and I believe you testified today, officers tried to gain control. He attacked and they responded and got him on the ground.
Yes, sir.
And you don't have any problem with that, do you?
No, sir.
Okay, good. The next thing we see in the video is Steven Jones, they're trying to get his arms for handcuffs, right?
Yes.
And Luke's kind of making an offer, but you see Steven Jones kneel on him for a second and grab his hand, and then he gets off and he repositions. And I think the video is going to show he's on him about 8 or 9 seconds. Do you remember seeing that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's a method by which you gain control of their hands, right?
Yes.
You don't see anything wrong with that?
No, sir.
Okay, good. And then I want to ask you about this. He takes his knee off him right after he gains control of him, and his hands are behind his back. If Lieutenant Cleves had ordered leg irons, I think in June of 2023, they asked you if leg irons would be reasonable under the circumstances. And it's your opinion today that leg irons would be reasonable under the circumstances.
Yes.
And I think today you testified that when you watched the video, he was still resisting.
Yes, sir.
He was still kicking.
Yes.
And in June of 2023, you testified that he was a runner, and that was something else that made it reasonable.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so, if Sergeant, I have to say it again, if Lieutenant Cleves ordered the leg irons, and they got him, Mr. Jones puts a knee on each side of him. You can see his hands are kind of keeping off. Did you say this spray burns your hands? I mean, if he's naked, is it hurting your hands when you're touching him?
Yes, sir.
All right. And so he's straddling, waiting, with no weight on it. You don't have a problem with that, do you?
No, sir.
No problem at all?
No.
Okay, great. And so he waits, and then we see in the video, the man that handed him the leg irons, that was Lieutenant Cleves, was it not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Lieutenant Cleves hands him the leg irons, and we see him put, it's kind of difficult to see, but it looks like he does this, and he gets one leg, and then he does this, and he gets the other leg and pulls him up. He gets up, he drops him, and he walks away.
Yes, sir.
Getting those leg irons that was a legitimate corrective measure, correct?
Yes, sir.
To get him in compliance and to gain control, right?
Yes.
Okay. And after Steven Jones' objective was complete, he got up and walked away, right?
Yes.
You don't have any problem with that, do you?
No, sir.
Okay. Your testimony today and again, I'm Steve Jones' lawyer, so I'm just concerned with him, okay, so I want to narrow it to not the fourth floor, not what may have happened on the fourth floor. You train these folks in use of force. You don't have any problem with anything Steve Jones did that day.
No, sir.
Thank you.
State, have you read that?
We have to submit that.
Yes.
Chief Inspector Green, you testified earlier that every single person who is employed at the Shelby County Jail is required to learn CPR.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Why are people required, why is every single person required to use and know how to do CPR if they're not expected to do CPR?
Say that again.
Why is everybody trained on CPR if they're not expected to use CPR in situations where it's called for?
They are expected to use it.
Okay, I was just confused because when Mr. Urban was asking you questions, you said that people don't need to start CPR or start trying to help somebody if there's somebody else there who can do it. That's what you said. So I just wanted to ask you to make that make sense.
No, he asked if medical was already on the scene.
Okay. What if medical's not on the scene yet? What if you are waiting for medical to get there?
Then anybody that's trained in CPR can do it if someone needs CPR.
And that is literally everybody?
Yes.
Okay. And a question about the use of force policy. If there is somebody who is in hand restraints and leg restraints, do you need to continue to use force against that person?
You don't continue to use force, but you have to keep your hands on them because they're vulnerable. You know, they're still under your custody.
Keep hands on them?
Yes.
Okay. If somebody is in handcuffs and in leg restraints, is there anything that prevents a person from putting them in a recovery position?
In this situation, because he was naked, because Mr. Freeman was naked, he wouldn't be able to go in that position.
And I'll ask you the question again, just because I think it bears repeating. What is more important, saving somebody's life or having their privates exposed?
Yeah, it's argumentative, Your Honor.
Well, I'll let her answer the question.
Saving someone's life.
So if you're in a situation where you have a choice of somebody not exposing their genitals or saving their life, what should be done 100% of the time?
We're gonna always try to save someone's life.
Do what?
We're gonna always try to save someone's life.
Okay, so if you're putting it in order, saving somebody's life is more important.
Yes.
Okay. And a recovery position is just rolling a person over on their side.
Yes.
So you could roll somebody over on their side and still try to protect. Is it possible to roll somebody over on their side and still protect their modesty?
It's possible, yes, ma'am.
Do you know, or do you have any personal knowledge about how much pressure Courtney Parham was placing on Gershun Freeman's back?
No, ma'am.
Do you know or have any personal knowledge about how much pressure Stevon Jones was putting on Gershun Freeman?
No, ma'am.
You mentioned that, back to the privacy matter, or the PREA question, that perhaps they were waiting for the jacket to get there, but even after a jacket gets there, do you see anybody cover him with the jacket?
I didn't see it, no, ma'am.
You didn't see that happen?
No.
So why'd you bring it up?
You said, why did I bring it up?
Why'd you bring it up?
Because that would be the reason. That would be the reason for it.
When somebody is in a, well, let me back up and ask it this way. Was there anything that you saw in the video that would have prevented any of the people who were there from putting Mr. Freeman in the medical chair?
No, ma'am.
By the time the medical chair gets there, is he handcuffed?
Yes.
And are his legs restrained?
Yes.
And even after the medical chair is there, Courtney Parham is still on his back?
I didn't see it.
Do you remember the first time that members of our office came and spoke with you?
Yes, ma'am.
That was with your lawyer there, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember them asking you a question on a scale of 1 to 10? How did they do on use of force?
He asked me about the whole overall scene.
Right.
Yes.
Do you remember us asking you that question?
Yes.
Okay. What was your answer?
I said 1.
1 being the worst, 10 being the best.
For the whole overall scene, yes, ma'am.
And, you know, I know I'm kind of raising my voice and asking you questions like this, but, you know, I understand. Are you in an awkward situation here?
No, ma'am.
Are you still co-workers with them?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Irvin asked you about the fact that Mr. Jones is not on DRT, right?
Yes, ma'am.
and he asked you the question, that he doesn't get that extra training that DRT gets, and you said he doesn't.
Right.
Okay. Does he still have to be trained every single year on the use of force policy, even if he doesn't get the extra DRT training?
Yes, ma'am.
Once a person is restrained, and in this situation, do you believe that Mr. Freeman was restrained after he had handcuffs on and leg irons on?
Do I believe what?
Do you have an opinion about whether or not Mr. Freeman was restrained after he was handcuffed and had leg irons?
Yes.
Okay. After somebody is restrained, should use of force continue?
No, use of force shouldn't continue, no.
And is it considered use of force to put your knee into somebody's back?
To put your knee in his back?
A
Yes.
knee in somebody's back, is
Yes.
that considered a use of force?
Yes, ma'am.
If your policy that we just read said that if you continue a use of force, after it's not needed anymore, that's the definition of excessive force. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And if you're using excessive force, that is a form of corporal punishment. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Did you see on that video Courtney Parham continue to put his knee on Gershun Freeman's back after he was restrained?
I didn't see anything excessive, no ma'am.
That is not my question.
Okay.
Did you see Courtney Parham continue to keep his knee on Gershun Freeman's back after he was restrained?
Yes, ma'am.
Those are my questions.
Would y'all proceed for set, please?
All right, Ms. Fuchs, you have any redirect? Or Mr. Massey, any redirect?
Yes, ma'am.
Recross, I'm sorry.
Inspector Gray.
Yes, sir.
There are rules and there's guidelines, right?
Yes, sir.
And guidelines kind of are more fluid than rules.
Yes, sir.
And when action is going down, when something's happening like this on the forward, it's hard to know exactly what's gonna happen next, isn't it?
Yes.
And what is your judgment and your functioning impaired by the spray?
Yes, sir, of course.
And we're talking about officers engaging in criminal acts, right?
Yes.
When you saw Courtney Parham on Mr. Freeman, you said you didn't know how much weight he had on this leg.
Right.
You don't know how much weight he had on his back.
Right.
Did you know if anybody knew, including the prosecutors?
No, sir.
You know, did you see evidence anywhere that told you how much weight was on each leg?
No, sir.
But you can clearly see him putting weight on the leg that he bounced out, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
Is that exercising caution?
Yes, sir.
When he's watching the man, is that exercising caution to be sure he's breathing?
Yes.
in your opinion, was Courtney Palm exercising caution?
Objection, Your Honor.
He has no expertise.
Do you have any problem with him, with his knee laying back?
Say again.
Do you have any problem in your training with the man's knee in his back, the way it was done in this case?
No, sir. Like I say, we train officers like that. When you got inmates down in a position, you have your hands on their shoulder pretty much, and you have your knee on them, but not using a lot of force to keep them controlled.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Secretary, just a couple more and then we're almost done. First of all, you've told us that Steven Jones was not a member of the detention response unit, right?
Yes, sir.
The DRT.
Yes.
And so, did Steven Jones have DRT training?
No, sir.
He didn't have the extra training that DRT members have?
No, sir.
Okay. With regard to CPR, I haven't taken it. I was supposed to this spring for a scout trip, but I haven't. You don't perform CPR on somebody who has a pulse and is breathing. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And at the end of this video, after Steven Jones has walked off, you'll see like 4 people around him that are not Steven Jones. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
Any of these 4 people that are around him, if they had thought that Gershun Freeman wasn't breathing, had become unresponsive at that
Your
point.
Honor.
This is based on the training and, I'm sorry.
I'll let him ask the question and then you can object.
Okay,
Okay.
Let's let him ask his question.
Based on your CPR training and your training of individuals in the jail, at what point would the people that were actually observing him perform CPR?
Once he became unresponsive and he wasn't breathing, then they would start CPR.
We've heard the term unresponsive. I want to make sure everybody's on the same page. What does that mean to you?
That means that he's not breathing. He has no pulse.
That's what unresponsive means to you? I
Yes.
don't know. So,
And I didn't say yes.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
and so, at that point, they would start CPR.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ms. Hunter asked you about this ranking of 1 to 10, and it is in your statement.
Yes.
They actually asked you to rank the 4th floor from 1 to 10. You hadn't even started discussing the 5th floor yet, had you?
I'm not sure.
It's on page 60 of your transcript.
What
And
is it, number would that be, sir?
This is just a prior statement, it's not an exhibit.
All right, it had been, okay,
That's right. If you had to rate this section right here on a 1 to 10, we'll talk 10 completely by the book, we'll call 1 a 0, not by the book. And that's when you said, well, I'm giving them a 1 because they responded. That was the 4th floor, right?
Right.
You weren't even talking about the 5th floor.
No, sir.
Because they hadn't even started talking about the 5th floor yet. Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. That's all I have. Thank you.
anything else from the state? Mr. Massey, anything else? Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming. Please don't talk to anybody else about what you asked or what you answered until the trial's over, okay?
Yes, sir.
You may call other people you think.
Okay.
Do you need a minute for your next witness, or are you ready?
Next witness is Dr. Marco Ross.
All right, Dr. Ross, please.
And Judge, if they're calling Marco Ross now, can I have a few minutes to clear out and get this stuff available?
All right. We'll take a short break.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, guess what? We're going to take another break. Y'all enjoy it.
And this could be a very short one.
Thank you, thank you. Hopefully when you get back there, you won't have a chance to sit down too long. Well, they're rushing us.
Judge, I will have one question soon, then we
All right, thank you. I don't ever take a break until everybody's.
two medical examiners that are planning to testify, and I know that defense counsel has got some recording equipment available to be able to record what Dr. Ross testifies to, that they can share with their medical expert who's coming in from Knoxville but could not be here this afternoon. My question is,
decided to go to the restroom at the last minute. Can you imagine that? We'll wait just a second.
Jury, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Jury's entering the courtroom. Jury's present, Your Honor.
All right. State you may call your next witness.
Call Dr. Marco Ross, Judge.
Dr. Ross, please.
Dr. Ross, step this way, please. Step inside, sir. Face the judge and raise your right hand.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Will you state your name and spell your first and last name for the court report?
Marco, M-A-R-C-O, Ross, R-O-S-S.
And what do you do for a living?
I retired in November as the Chief Medical Examiner at the West Tennessee Regional Forensic Center.
How long did you work as the chief medical examiner at the West Tennessee Forensic Sciences Center?
I was the Chief Medical Examiner for about 5 years. Prior to that, I was an interim Chief Medical Examiner for about 3 years. And prior to that, I worked as a Deputy Chief from 2007 until 2018 or so.
Before that, what did you do?
Before that, I was a medical examiner in Phoenix, Arizona, and in Spokane, Washington.
And before that?
I received my medical degree at Tulane University in 1985 and completed a residency in general surgery at the University of South Carolina in 91, served as a surgeon in the U.S. Navy from 91 to 95, then completed a residency in anatomic and clinical pathology at the University of Vermont in 1999, and a forensic pathology fellowship at the University of North Carolina in 2000 was when I finished that.
Go back to what was more current, the West Tennessee Regional Forensic Center. Where is that located?
It's here in Memphis,
Just a few blocks.
just a few blocks east of here.
What counties in Tennessee does the West Tennessee Regional Forensic Center serve?
It's primarily Shelby County, the Shelby County Medical Examiner's Office, but we also perform autopsies for a number of counties in West Tennessee.
What were your duties and responsibilities both as a forensic pathologist and as the director?
To evaluate and examine those deaths that occurred either unexpectedly or unnaturally.
Approach the witness.
Yes.
Can you identify this document?
Yes, this is my curriculum vitae.
Judge, I move that into evidence as the next number exhibit.
This is the exhibit number 13. Exhibit 13.
And I've got copies for the drawers, Judge, if we could pass those out.
That would be nice. Here again, please don't write on those or make notes on those. You can take notes, but not on those. We're going to take those up along with that other exhibit and this witness's due testimony.
Still get that. Dr. Ross, you've already covered to a certain extent the first page on this CV, correct?
Yes.
Probably have this condition memory, but let me pass that to you. Covered your education.
Yes.
Second page, your military service.
Yes.
Rather than just read that, I want to give the jury an opportunity to look at it while you talk about, just for a second, your military service.
Well, I started out as on the inactive reserves as part of the Armed Forces Health Profession Scholarship Program, and remained in that capacity until I graduated, and then continued in a physician reservist capacity during my residency time in general surgery at the University of South Carolina. Then when I completed that, I served as a staff surgeon intermittently at the Naval Regional Medical Center in San Diego, was also assigned as a ship surgeon on the USS Ranger from 1991 to 1992. Then following that, I served as a staff surgeon at the Naval Hospital at the Naval Air Station in Lemoore, California from 1992 to 1995.
Your professional and academic appointments have a distinguished list ranging from 1985, that follow on page 3, from 1992 all the way to 2017. And then on the top of page 4, from 2017 all the way up to present, prior to your retirement. And are you still serving as a clinical assistant professor?
No longer. I've retired from that as well.
Also on page 4, your certifications. You've got the American Board of Pathology, and you're licensed in the state of Tennessee, correct?
Correct.
You've got a number of professional societies you're a member of, and you've done a number of research activities. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Page 5, you've got a number of publications. You've presented some papers, and you've done some scientific exhibits that last from page 5 to page 6. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then bottom of page 6 into page 7 is a list that may not be an exhaustive list, but you are a frequent speaker with regards to forensic pathology. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the definition of forensic pathology, Dr. Ross?
The evaluation and examination and study of those deaths that occur due to unnatural means or the injuries that result from them.
Dr. Ross, what is an autopsy?
An autopsy is an examination of the body that is performed both an external portion and an internal portion. The external portion of the autopsy is an examination of the outer surface of the body, looking for evidence and findings of disease and injury. and then examining the inner structures of the body by making incisions in the head, neck, chest, and abdomen to evaluate the internal organs and tissues, also examining them for evidence of disease and injury.
Prior to today, how many autopsies have you performed?
Roughly in the neighborhood of 5,000, a little over that, I believe.
Have you testified as to cause of death in Tennessee courts before?
Yes, I have.
In those Tennessee courts in which you have testified the cause of death, how many times have you testified in the Shelby County courts?
I have honestly not kept track of the number of times, but it's been numerous times.
Hundreds. Well,
Well,
over 100.
Over 100, I believe.
Have you been declared an expert in courts of this state, including Shelby County courts, in the field of forensic pathology?
Yes, I have.
And when you have testified as to cause of death, did you also testify after being qualified as an expert in forensic pathology?
Yes, I did.
Judge, at this time, the state would like to offer Dr. Marco Ross as an expert in the field of forensic pathology.
Any questions?
No objection.
No objection.
No objection from either defense. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you before, ordinarily witnesses can't give you opinions. What do you think might have happened? Things like that, but only what they saw or heard. I'm going to give you a special instruction at the end of the trial. I'm just going to say the rules of evidence provide that if scientific, technical, or other specialized knowledge might assist the jury in understanding the evidence or in determining fact and issue, a witness qualified as an expert by reason of special knowledge, skill, or experience may testify and state his or her opinions concerning such matters and give reasons for his or her testimony. Merely because an expert witness has expressed an opinion doesn't mean, however, that you're bound to accept this opinion. Same as with any other witness, it's up to you to decide whether you believe this testimony and choose to rely upon it. Part of that decision will depend on your judgment about whether the witness's background or training and experience is sufficient for the witness to give the expert opinion that you heard. You must also decide whether the witness's opinions were based on sound reasons, judgment, and information. So you're to give the testimony of an expert witness such weighted value as you think it deserves, along with all the other evidence in the case. But I'm going to designate him as an expert so that he'll be allowed to give his opinions in the field of forensic pathology. Thanks.
Thank you, Judge. When you do an autopsy, what records and reports do you keep?
We take photographs of the autopsy and the findings, and then we complete an autopsy report that documents those findings.
Is there a standard format to that report?
Yes, there is.
And just 15-second version, how does that get formatted?
We generally have a title page that includes a list of the pathologic diagnoses, followed by a page where we describe clothing, personal effects. We'll describe the external examination that I described before, and then we go through the internal examination, and sometimes either as part of either one of those sections or separately. There's going to be a section that describes traumatic injuries that are found in the body. Then following that, there's a microscopic description where we describe what we see on microscopic slides that we look at of the tissues, and then following that, a summary and interpretation section.
Are autopsies reviewed and then you actually sign the autopsy that you perform?
Yes,
Are those records public record?
they are.
Where are they actually kept?
At the West Tennessee Regional Forensic Center, both in paper form and electronic form.
Did you receive a subpoena to appear in this court regarding the state of Tennessee versus Mr. Jones and Mr. Parr?
Yes, I did.
Who is the deceased victim associated with this criminal case?
Mr. Gershun Freeman.
When you got possession of the body in order to perform the autopsy, what was Mr. Gershun Freeman wearing?
I believe he was unclothed at the time that we performed his autopsy.
And where did you receive it from? Where had he been transported from?
From the jail.
Here at 201 Poplar.
That's correct.
Do you know where he had actually been pronounced deceased?
He was pronounced deceased at the jail. I don't know the precise location, but I believe it was at the jail.
At the West Tennessee Forensic Pathological Center, there are a number of doctors that perform autopsies, is that correct?
Yes.
But in this case, you yourself performed the autopsy.
Yes, I did.
What date and time did you perform the autopsy?
It was performed on October 6, 2022, and the procedure started at 10 o'clock in the morning.
How long did it take you from start to finish to complete the autopsy of Mr. Freeman?
I don't honestly remember, but I would say that it was probably on the order of about 2 to 3 hours.
Does your report reflect what day Mr. Freeman passed?
Yes.
Your Honor, I don't have an objection to his admission. I would just ask that the autopsy report be admitted before his reading from it.
All right, that's fine, Judge. Dr. Ross, do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
What is that document?
It is the report of investigation, the autopsy report, the toxicology report, and a scene investigation narrative, a verification of death letter, and a evidence list that we have from our office at the West Tennessee Regional Forensic Center.
This compilation essentially categorized as the autopsy report?
It includes the autopsy. The autopsy report itself is actually a document included among these others.
Judge, move that document, that set of documents instead.
May we approach?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. I have no objection to the autopsy report.
Ladies and gentlemen, there are some extra things included other than the outside report. We're going to just take just a second. We're not going to make y'all leave. Should take just a second, take those things out, and then we'll give you your copies of the actual exhibit that will be in.
So, you gotta start taking that. Go through the lab report, once we get to the discharge checklist, then the rest of it has to be. if I can just count these to make sure we've got the right number.
Yes, sir. And we'll need one for the witness as well.
If I can pass this to the witness. Now, can you tell us what is in the current version of the package, Dr. Ross?
The report of investigation by county medical examiner, the autopsy report itself, a body diagram, the toxicology report.
Judge, at this point, I would move that to be the next.
All right.
exhibit.
This is going to
And
be,
introduce it as.
it's gonna be exhibit 13 again. Well, 14, I'm sorry. That's right, the CP was 13. I thought we were reiterating the
Can we pass copies? to
Yes,
the
sir.
jury?
He needs a copy.
Okay. Oh, Dr. Ross?
Yeah, he's the exhibit right there.
I'll
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
pass it.
copy.
I think he's already got his own, brought his own copy, but we'll talk about that.
Thank you.
He's welcome, Mr. Newton, to have the exhibit back. He needs to refer to the exhibit.
Yeah. I'll get it. I'll get it. I'll get it. Okay. Thanks, sir.
Dr. Ross will be handed the exhibit shortly.
All right, Dr. Ross.
They're almost done. I'll have it just a second. All right, now, Ms. Jackson, any extras? All right, thank you, go ahead.
Dr. Ross, does the report indicate the day that Mr. Freeman was killed?
The report of investigation states that the date of death was October 5, 2022 at 5:27 p.m.
And then you did the autopsy the next day at 10 o'clock in the morning?
Correct.
How old was Mr. Freeman at the time of his death?
33 years.
And what was his height and weight?
He had a height of 69 inches, that's 5 feet 9 inches, and a weight of 181 pounds.
Explain to the court and to the jury the term cause of death.
The cause of death is that specific disease entity or process that caused the death of the decedent.
It's listed on the very first page of this, and then it's repeated later on, but can you read for the jury there on the third box from the bottom what you wrote as far as cause of death?
Exacerbation of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease due to physical altercation and subdual.
The term subdual, does that mean the manner in which someone was subdued?
That includes the process of subduing an individual.
Explain the term contributing cause of death, contributory cause of death.
Those are additional factors that play a role in the death of the decedent, that they may additionally contribute to the primary cause of death.
Explain to the court the term manner of death.
Manner of death is a categorization of the type of deaths. This is done for epidemiologic purposes. And on death certificates, deaths are categorized as either natural deaths or as accidental deaths or suicide or homicide. And another category is undetermined deaths, those which you cannot accurately or adequately classify into one of those categories.
So you've only got 5 boxes to put it in,
Correct.
right? The last box is kind of a catch-all, undetermined, correct?
For those which you truly cannot adequately put it in one of the other boxes.
So let's talk about the other 4 boxes. The first box that you listed was what?
Natural death.
Natural death. That would be somebody who dies of cancer,
Correct.
heart attack.
Correct.
The next box would be what?
Accidental deaths.
Accidental death. Somebody who,
Objection deleting.
all right, tell me an example of an accidental death.
Most common ones we see are probably motor vehicle crashes. We call those accidental deaths. Someone working, falling off of a roof. Elderly individuals who fall and break a hip and die of complications from that. That's considered an accident.
The third box would be what?
Suicide,
And then the fourth is what?
homicide.
Can you define the term homicide as used in a medical document like this to the best of your ability?
Essentially, those deaths that occur due to the direct actions of another individual or individuals.
Suicide, did it to myself.
Yes.
Homicide, caused by the actions of other individuals.
Correct.
In this case, on this first page, under manner of death, which box did you put that in?
It was categorized as a homicide.
On this first page, there is in the 5th box down a narrative summary. You see that?
Yes.
Who prepared that narrative summary?
Dina Sanford, one of our investigators,
And she dated that narrative summary on what date?
on October 5, 2022.
You do not know from firsthand knowledge the information that Dina Sanford put into this narrative summary.
No, I don't.
But that's the place on an autopsy report where you put a narrative summary from one of your investigators.
Yes.
Turning to the second page. Who was present with you as you did the autopsy?
Alexis Brody, one of our autopsy technicians.
And pathological diagnosis, what do you mean by that?
Those are the lists of diseases of the body. It includes injuries as well.
All right. What did you mean by multiple contusions of the body?
There were multiple scattered bruises and areas of hemorrhaging in the tissues of the body.
What did you mean by scalp laceration?
It's an actual wound, an open wound on the scalp caused by a blunt force impact to the back of the head.
What did you mean by healing stab wound to the back? Parentheses, clinical history, close parentheses.
He had a wound on his left upper back region, which, based on review of records, was consistent with a stab wound that occurred, I believe, approximately 10 days earlier. And he'd been in the hospital, I believe, for about 3 days before he was discharged.
Under Roman numeral 4, atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. And then you got an A, B, and a C. Tell me what you mean by those words.
Atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease refers to a disease process that occurs in the heart and blood vessels of the body. It is one of the most common diseases, particularly in the elderly, And it is a disease process whereby excessive deposits will occur on the inner lining of a blood vessel. And those deposits can reduce blood flow getting to various tissues. And in this particular case with coronary atherosclerosis, there was disease of the blood vessels on the surface of the heart. These coronary arteries on the surface of the heart are responsible for giving blood supply to the heart muscle tissues itself. And those coronary arteries on the surface of the heart were diseased. And in some areas they were actually very severely diseased with this atherosclerosis. So that would have caused a reduction of blood flow to his heart muscle tissue. There was also some aortic atherosclerosis. The same process that was occurring in these blood vessels around the heart was also occurring in the aorta. The aorta is that main large blood vessel, comes out of your heart and then goes down into the body and branches off to give blood supply to the rest of the body. There was some disease there, but it wasn't as severe as what we had seen in the coronary arteries. And lastly, there was some cerebrovascular atherosclerosis. Again, the same disease process was occurring in blood vessels at the base of the brain. That's what cerebrovascular refers to. In his case, not very severe, but when it gets severe enough, cerebrovascular atherosclerosis can cause strokes.
Roman numeral 5, left ventricular hypertrophy of heart. What do you mean by that?
That is an abnormal thickening of the muscle of the left heart.
And then for the second time in your report here on the second page, cause of death, exacerbation of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease due to physical altercation and subdual.
Yes.
Contributing condition, probable psychotic disorder, and then you signed that on February 8th of 2023 electronically.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to the next page. Clothing and personal effects, that's a pretty short paragraph
Yes.
in this case. Evidence of medical intervention, what was on Mr. Freeman's body at the time that you were first starting your autopsy?
There was a cervical collar around his neck that's typically placed there by emergency personnel to limit neck motion and protect it from any potential further injury if there is any neck injury. 4 EKG leads. These are leads that are placed on the body to perform an EKG to look to see if there's any evidence of electrical heart activity. There were 2 defibrillator pads present. These are sort of like EKG leads, except they're much larger, and they actually deliver electrical energy to the body. It's designed to shock the heart and try to bring it back to a normal rhythm. An intravascular catheter or an IV that was entering his left antecubital fossa, that's sort of like in the crook of the left elbow. And then he does have a healing chest tube incision site on his left chest, just sort of underneath the armpit area. There was a healing wound that, based on my review of the medical records, was consistent with where a chest tube had been placed. This was part of the treatment that was done for his stab wound when he'd been in the hospital earlier for that.
All right. Tell us about your external examination.
The external examination revealed that he had a height of 69 inches, weight 181 pounds. It was in full rigor. I was not able to detect any livor mortis. He had some tattoos, and he's described his hair and eyes, that his thorax and extremities essentially appear to be normally developed and symmetrical. His hands, his body was received with the hands previously bagged in paper bags. That's what we typically do for a number of deaths that we receive, particularly from the jail. And then I describe just some irregular hyperpigmentation on the flanks and the left hip, and that essentially is the external examination.
Okay. You noticed some trauma, and if you can describe that believe we've got some pictures that we'll introduce here in a few minutes. If you can just describe the evidence of the trauma that you found.
On external examination, we found that there, on the head, there was a 1 1/8 inch laceration or a tear or opening on the right upper occipital scalp. That would be the back of the head that extends through the galea. The galea is the actual tissue that covers the surface of the skull. So the laceration, the tear, actually extended through that, and there was some exposed skull at the base of the wound. There were a few 1/16 to 5/16 inch abrasions or scrape marks on the lower part of the occipital scalp, as well as on the back of his neck. There was a 1/2 inch abrasion on the left side of his forehead, a 1/16 inch superficial abrasion on the mucosal surface, sort of the inner surface of the lower lip next to the right corner of the mouth, and another 3/16 inch superficial abrasion on the inner surface of the upper lip, and a 3/8 inch abrasion on the inner surface of the lower lip. We internally examined.
So these are all trauma on the head and around the face and the mouth.
Correct.
Correct. Occipital scalp, can you tell us again what that is?
That's the back of the head.
The back of the head. All right. What did you notate about Mr. Freeman's injuries on the second paragraph that starts with internal examination of the head and neck?
Yes, the internal examination of the head and neck revealed some hemorrhage of the right frontal scalp, that's subscapular hemorrhage. So there was an area on the right front of his head underneath the skin where there's some hemorrhaging in the tissues. There was also another 3 centimeter area of hemorrhage on the left side of the head underneath the tissues. There was a 3.5 centimeter hemorrhage in the tissues on the left side of the head, the left temporal area, and a 5 centimeter area of hemorrhage, again, underneath the tissues in the right lower occipital scalp in the back of the head. A 7 by 3 centimeter hemorrhage of the left sternocleidomastoid muscle. That's a muscle that extends from just behind the ear on the skull and extends down to the inner part of the clavicle and sort of the upper part of the sternum, and it attaches there. So that's the sternocleidomastoid muscle. It's one of the muscles that helps to turn your head. And there was some hemorrhaging in that muscle itself. There were also in the on the lower occipital scalp, the back of the head, the tissues down there, and extending down onto the neck. There were some superficial hemorrhages, or some muscular hemorrhages in the superficial muscles and the subcutaneous tissues just underneath the skin. So the layers are, you would have skin, subcutaneous tissues or fat, and then underneath that you have muscle, and you have like superficial muscles, and then you get into deep muscles. And on the back of the neck, there were some superficial muscular hemorrhages as well as in the subcutaneous tissue above it, but we also dissected further into the neck and did not reveal any hemorrhages in the deeper muscular tissues of the neck.
Okay. For the rest of the section on evidence of trauma.
Yes, he had some punctate, that's almost small, very almost like needle-like abrasions or scrape marks that were on the right front part of his chest wall. He had some localized superficial muscular hemorrhages on the left lower outer chest wall. On his left arm, he had a scab on the inner part of his elbow. He had a healing abrasion or scrape mark also on the elbow. an area of localized scrape mark on the top of his little finger, and two 1/4 inch superficial parallel cuts on the outer part of the wrist. On his right arm, he had a 1/8 inch abrasion on the top of the wrist, a 1/4 inch abrasion on the top part of the hand, and two 3/16 inch abrasions on the top of his middle finger, and some localized healing abrasions on the tops of his ring and little fingers, and some localized subcutaneous hemorrhage on the outer aspect of the right wrist. On his legs, he had some healing abrasions on the knees and a scab on the inner part of the right ankle, and some scab scratches on the sort of the front outer part of the left ankle. And then on his back, he had some two faint contusions or bruises on the upper back near the middle, and then he had an abrasion on the back of the left shoulder, another abrasion or scrape mark on the back of the right shoulder, a few scattered faint contusions on the right outer part of his right outer back of the chest, and that previously described healing stab wound. And then when we made an incision into the skin to look at the tissues underneath the skin, we discovered multiple scattered hemorrhages in the superficial and deep muscular tissues of the back, ranging from 2 to 7 centimeters in size.
All right. Can you define contusion for us?
A contusion is essentially a bruise. It would appear as a bruise on the surface of the skin, and when you make an incision into it, you can see active hemorrhaging into the tissues, either just underneath the skin and the subcutaneous fat, or you can see this as hemorrhage or bleeding into the muscular tissues.
How long does it take a bruise to form?
It can form essentially immediately upon impact, a blunt force impact to the skin or tissues, and it would begin immediately, and it can continue to bleed for a while until the body's processes may stop the bleeding in that area.
I know that you're mainly forensic pathology, but are you aware that some injuries that cause bruising, the bruise does not come into full flower until the next day or even the day after that?
That's usually what you can see on the surface. The injury that actually occurs in the deep tissue, so the hemorrhage is already there, but it may take a while for that hemorrhage to work its way sufficiently to the surface so that you can see it as a bruise on the surface of the skin.
Can contusions be consistent with a great amount of force being placed on that location?
They can be, yes.
Can contusions on the right posterolateral chest wall be consistent with too much pressure or too much weight being placed on the back?
Potentially, yes.
What are deep muscular hemorrhages?
Those are hemorrhages that are occurring in some of the deeper muscle layers of those areas.
Can deep muscular hemorrhages be consistent with too much pressure or too much weight being placed on the back?
It can be consistent with a certain amount of pressure or weight on the back.
Okay. And as far as too much weight on the back, if I weigh 249 pounds and I lay down on this CO of Shelby County, spread my body leg, it'd be 6 feet by 2 feet with pressure of 249 pounds. Would that be an accurate statement? Spread out over what?
Right, yes.
But if I hope I keep my balance good. If I were to stand like this, we got 249 pounds just going on the square footage of my foot.
Correct.
Right? Would that mean that there was more pressure underneath my foot than there would have been if I had laid down on this whole seal?
Yes.
And if I had balanced on my knee, would that pressure have been concentrated on the width and length of my knee on that space?
If you were entirely balanced on that knee, yes.
And would that have been able to more pronounced cause a contusion or a deep muscular hemorrhage on the area underneath of that, if that was a human being I was on top of.
It can, yes.
The internal examination. Can you tell us about the internal examination performed on Gershun Freeman?
The internal examination revealed that the organs of the body were appropriately placed. Everything was smooth and glistening throughout, which basically means that he was in a good state of hydration, and that the tissue surfaces appear normal, of normal quality when first looking at them. Didn't see any significant accumulations of fluid in the body cavities that would include blood. I did note the healing chest tube insertion site on the left side of the chest, and the healing stab wound in the back left area of the chest. In his heart, he had a heart weight of 418 grams, had a somewhat globular configuration. That's a little bit abnormal. Hearts tend to have, almost more of a tapered shape to it, whereas it tends to be more globular. It's usually because of thickening of the muscle, which in this case he had that left ventricular hypertrophy that would account for that. I described the coronary.
So now we're on page 4 under the subsection cardiovascular system.
Correct.
Okay. Make sure everybody's on the same page with that.
The coronary arteries that I described, and there is 3 main coronary arteries that give blood supply to the heart. Those are the left anterior descending coronary artery, the left circumflex coronary artery, and the right coronary artery. And all of those had evidence of this atherosclerotic disease. To start with, in the left anterior descending coronary artery, which is the artery that kind of gives blood supply sort of to the front part of the heart, there was a 50% stenosis. And what that refers to is that if you imagine that if you take a cross section, you were cut through the artery, you have sort of a circular outline, and that outline, if it were free of disease, it would be, there would be 0% stenosis. If half of it is blocked off, so only half of the opening is available, that's a 50% stenosis. Now, I described a diagonal branch, which is a branch that comes off of the left anterior descending coronary artery, still giving some blood supply to the front of the heart. There was a 50 to 60% area of stenosis in one of those. The left circumflex coronary artery is an artery that also kind of comes a bit off the front of the heart, but then it sort of starts going over to the left side of the heart and kind of gives blood supply towards the left side of the heart and towards the back of the left side of the heart. And that blood vessel had a 40 to 50% stenosis. And then in the right coronary artery, and that's a fairly long artery, it does sort of start out towards the front and sort of goes along the right side of the heart, and then it loops around to the back of the heart, and it's largely responsible for giving a lot of the blood supply to the back of the heart. And that right coronary artery had a 75 to 80% stenosis in the proximal portion, meaning the first part where it kind of originates from its site of origin. There's already an area of high degree of stenosis caused by this atherosclerosis. So only about 20 to 25% of the available space of the opening of that blood vessel was available for blood to go through. So it was quite narrowed. In the mid portion of the right coronary artery, 60 to 70% stenosis, and then in sort of a farther out, more distal part of the coronary artery near its end, there was another 75 to 80% stenosis that occurred in that coronary artery. I then went on to describe the thicknesses of the heart muscle, and that's where I get the with the 2.0 centimeters in the interventricular septum and 1.8 centimeters in the left ventricle. That's an abnormal level of thickness of those of that heart muscle. That's abnormally, that's what we described as the hypertrophy, the left ventricular hypertrophy of the heart. And when I say that the ventricle is concentrically hypertrophic, when you cut it and look at it, you can see that it's very thickened all around. I went on to describe the valves of the heart, which were essentially normal, except some slightly thickened, the mitral valve, but not pathologically significant. And then I described the rest of the heart examination as being relatively unremarkable. And then I described the inner surface of the aorta, which I described before. That was some very focal or localized mild atherosclerotic disease. I then go on to...
But before we move out of the cardiovascular system, someone who presents with this level of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, this person is not in an imminent danger to where a doctor would need to put a stent in at this point.
Oh, they quite possibly could be. As a matter of fact, that degree, particularly if they're symptomatic, I would defer to a cardiologist, but I know that if they have that degree of disease and they have symptoms because of it, they're going to want to have some sort of intervention, either some type of stents put in or even a bypass performed. If they're asymptomatic, I'm not sure what the current cardiology recommendation is for management of that type of disease if it's asymptomatic. But I certainly know that that's the kind of individual that would be watched very closely by a cardiologist.
And there are some people with this level that until they become symptomatic may be able to do any number of things, including even running and engaging in sports and activities.
Depends upon what degree of stress is put on the heart and what the oxygen demands of the heart. The oxygen demands of the heart require a certain amount of blood flow to it, and that blood flow is diminished sufficiently by this disease, then they'll start to manifest some symptoms.
Other than that, though, you cannot say how on a regular day or...
Check the lady.
What can you say without ever having met Gershun Freeman as far as whether or not he was symptomatic or asymptomatic prior to October 5th of 2022?
It would partly depend upon what level of activity he typically engaged in. It would also depend upon what his threshold for recognizing or what his level of threshold for experiencing those symptoms are. And many individuals may have the symptoms, but for whatever reason make a decision not to report it or to seek medical care for it.
So can you tell just by looking at this, or is that something that you would need to be his general practitioner or his personal doctor?
One would need to find out more about his normal activities and what his response to those activities are to know how symptomatic this disease was.
Okay. All right, let's go on to the respiratory system.
The respiratory system, referring mainly to the lungs, they described that the left lung had some localized areas of hemorrhaging that was associated with the healing stab wound and chest tube insertion sites in that area. Otherwise, the lungs appeared to be normal, and they did have no significant areas of any type of abnormality in the lung tissues. They were somewhat congested. That's just means an accumulation of blood in the tissues. It actually accumulation of blood in the vessels of the tissues. That's what congestion is. And actually, after an individual dies, that's quite common finding in the lungs. So it's nothing specific. Digestive hepatobiliary, referring to the gut system of the body, which essentially nothing remarkable there. He had a normal stomach, had about 200 milliliters of fluid and some food particles. The intestines, the pancreas, and the liver and the gallbladder all appeared unremarkable and normal to me. Going to the next page, the genitourinary system, referring to the kidneys and the bladder primarily. The kidneys appeared to be normal, and the bladder itself was normal, had contained about 115 milliliters of urine in it, and the prostate gland and seminal vesicles at the base of the bladder also were unremarkable. I described the hematopoietic system. The spleen was normal. The endocrine system, the glands of the endocrine system, that is the pituitary gland in the base of the brain, the thyroid gland in your neck, and the adrenal glands on top of the kidneys. Those are all glands responsible for various endocrine functions, releasing a variety of hormones into the body that can control a number of factors. Those all appear normal. Looking at the neck, I described that previous hemorrhage in the left sternocleidomastoid muscle, as well as the superficial hemorrhages in the back of the neck that I described previously. But otherwise, the rest of the neck appeared normal. I didn't see any other additional hemorrhages in the neck, and all of the bones and other structures of the neck are intact. The musculoskeletal system, referring to the other muscles and bones of the body, and other than the areas of hemorrhage that I noted in the muscular tissues before, the rest of that looked normal in him. The nervous system, referring to essentially the brain and its structures. So when we reflected the scalp on the head, we did see, of course, the hemorrhages that I previously described. Otherwise, the skull itself was intact. Then we opened the skull to look inside, and essentially he had a normal brain. Didn't see any abnormalities except in the areas of the blood vessels at the base of the brain. There were some mild atherosclerotic changes, mild to moderate, but nothing severe in those blood vessels. Then going on, the toxicology specimens describes what we collected during the autopsy and subsequently sent out for toxicology testing later. The microscopic description section describes how those various tissues that I looked at microscopically, and just gives a description of how they look like. The heart, microscopically, did show these what are called hypertrophic myocytes. These are enlarged heart muscle cells, and the reason they're like that is because any number of things can cause that. Most common thing that causes it actually is high blood pressure, hypertension. Particularly untreated hypertension can cause these muscles, these what are called myocytes. Those are the heart muscle cells. They can become hypertrophied or enlarged in that type of setting. And oftentimes associated with that, you get these little areas, microscopic areas of scarring that can occur in and around some of the microscopic blood vessels in the heart tissue, as well as around the muscle fibers. And that's all consistent and can be the result of hypertension, but also in this case because of a severe coronary artery disease, the decreased blood flow to the heart tissues that can cause that fibrosis or scarring in those tissues as well. In his lungs, saw that there were some areas of some hemorrhaging in the tissues of the heart, of the lung, but that was associated with the fact that the vessels were already congested, which is sort of a normal process that occurs in the lungs after you die. Certainly did not see any evidence of excessive hemorrhage that would suggest any type of localized or of severe trauma to the lungs, and also did not see any evidence of any underlying disease of the lungs like pneumonia or emphysema. Saw nothing like that. The liver essentially looked normal microscopically, except for some localized congestion again. There's a little excess blood pooling in the blood vessels, but that's actually not unexpected after death. The kidneys themselves also showed some congestion. And autolysis, that's a normal process that occurs after you die. The tissues start to break down, and you can kind of see that microscopically. And in the kidneys, they actually break down fairly quickly after death, so you can oftentimes see that fairly early on, that autolysis or breakdown of the tissues in the kidneys. And then looking at the various sections of the brain, showed that there was some focal scant subarachnoid hemorrhage in the section of cerebral cortex, and I believe that to be a postmortem artifact. I did not see any evidence of hemorrhage grossly when I looked at the brain. And looking at the areas of the brain, what we consider when we look at hemorrhage, we look for, first of all, what's called subdural hemorrhage. And that refers to an area underneath the dura. Attached to the inner surface of the skull is this layer of tissue called dura, and it completely surrounds the brain. And so between the brain surface and the dura, which lines the inner part of the skull, there's a potential space there, and blood can collect there. That's what's called subdural blood. He didn't have any of that. Sometimes you can actually get blood between the skull and that dura, and that's called epidural hemorrhage. He didn't have that either. Now, there's also a layer of tissue immediately on the surface of the brain called the arachnoid layer. Sometimes you can get a little get some bleeding underneath that. You can see that with contusions and other injuries of the brain. I didn't see anything grossly, and sometimes you can get it artifactually when it's really localized and very scant, as it was in this case. And given the fact that there was some congestion or swelling of the blood vessels in the tissues of the brain, again, another normal postmortem or after-death finding, that when you cut through that, some of those blood vessels just kind of leak out, and you can see that microscopically, but it wasn't anything pathologic, in my opinion. Also looked at an area of what's called the basal ganglia. It's sort of an inner part of the brain, and in that inner part of the brain, where a lot of the nerve fibers of the brain kind of pass through this area called the basal ganglia, there was some what's called micronodular mineralization of the vessel wall. Some of the blood vessels had a little like localized areas of calcium collecting in them. And to some extent, as individuals age, that can become fairly normal. In some individuals, it's quite common, but oftentimes it may or may not be associated with any particular disease. In this case, it did not appear to be in him. Hippocampus, another area that sort of the inner part of the brain on the inner surface is an area actually where oftentimes can be the first sign of loss of oxygen to the brain. You can see some type of changes in the hippocampus. Those weren't present in here. I did see some of that focal scant subarachnoid hemorrhage, which again can be an artifact, and I believe it was in this particular case. The cerebellum is a part of the brain that is sort of, your brain is divided into three main parts. It's got the main big part of your brain, the really largest part of your brain is called the cerebrum. And then underneath and behind the cerebrum is the cerebellum. That's another sort of smaller part of the brain that is largely responsible for coordination and balance. And then there's the brain stem. That's the third main part of the brain. It sort of connects the cerebrum and cerebellum together, and then it extends on down. It gives the blood, it gives the nerve supply coming from the brain and cerebellum, passes through the brain stem down into the spinal cord and then out to the body. It's also the site where certain important centers, like the respiratory centers, are located in the brain stem. Sometimes the damage to that can cause one to stop breathing. At any rate, in the cerebellum, there was some early ischemic changes in the cerebellum, again from lack of oxygen occurring to the brain tissue. The rest of the brain tissue that I looked at, including portions of what's called the corpus callosum, which is an area that sort of connects parts of the cerebrum, some of the deep areas of the cerebrum, the midbrain, which is sort of almost like the innermost part of the cerebrum where it connects to the brainstem, and then the medulla, which is part of the brainstem itself. All of those did show some localized congestion and some postmortem changes, but no other abnormalities were seen in those tissues.
Okay. It says that you also did some additional procedures of full body X-rays, fingernail clippings, hair sample, FDA card.
Correct.
None of that really bore on your assessment in this case with regards to cause of death and manner of death?
Looked at the X-rays. We obtained the X-rays and looked at them as part of the examination process, and did not see any abnormalities on X-rays.
Okay. Now, let's not everybody turn to it, but 3 pages from now, there is a toxicology report, and you say here on your page 6, samples of blood, urine, vitreous fluid, and liver are collected. Is that
Yes.
right? And then you did not do the toxicology review when nobody in your lab did that, did they?
We don't do the testing. No.
Okay. You send that out to a laboratory that's in Pennsylvania. Is that right?
Correct.
And we get a report back from that laboratory in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
An objection to the meeting?
Please don't.
Who from that lab is here to testify about the results of that?
Your Honor, may we have noted?
Yeah. Yeah, come on back. They just need to exercise. Yes, a second.
Okay, Dr. Ross, with regards to the toxicology report that is on the back of this section, that was not prepared by you, was it?
No.
All right. Who was it prepared by?
National Medical Services.
All right. Now, are you a toxicologist?
No, I'm not.
You've been certified in forensic pathology. That's your field of study and expertise, is that correct?
That's correct.
Are you able to provide a detailed opinion regarding the effects of substances on the body?
I can to some extent, yes.
Can you tell us what naloxone and Narcan, what that substance is used for?
Naloxone or Narcan is used as an agent to counter the effects of opioid drugs.
How much Narcan or naloxone was in Mr. Freeman's body post-mortem?
They did not measure the amount. It was just a presumptive positive based upon their screening. They could have measured it if we'd asked, but we did not request a specific measurement of the amount.
Are you able, with that information, are you able to accurately testify about the effect of that substance on Mr. Freeman prior to his death?
Other than the fact that its presence is consistent with part of the resuscitative measures that would have been taken by emergency medical personnel.
That's not fruit of Narcan for folks that overdose on opioids. But this would have been consistent with what was going on in his treatment as he was dying, is that correct?
And its treatment, what?
His treatment on the night that
Yes.
he was killed.
Yes.
Delta 9 THC, what is that?
That is as a cannabinoid, as sort of the active ingredient of marijuana.
How does that affect the body?
Marijuana is primarily a hallucinogenic drug. It can cause, in some individuals, it may have a relaxing effect on them.
How much THC was in Mr. Freeman's body post-mortem?
0.87 nanograms per milliliter.
And can you testify about the effect that amount of substance would have on Mr. Freeman prior to his death?
That's an almost undetectable level, so probably had no effect on him.
Promethazine, what is that?
Promethazine, also known as Phenergan, is a drug that has some what are called antihistaminic properties. It's frequently administered along with opioid drugs to help to supplement the effects of the drug. Primarily can have somewhat of a sedative effect on the body.
What is within therapeutic range? What does that mean?
That means that it's within what is normally in normally prescribed and normally administered doses of the drug is what you would expect to see.
Can you testify about the effect that substance would have had on Mr. Freeman prior to his death?
Probably not having much effect at that level.
During the autopsy, did you or members of your staff take a number of photographs?
Yes.
Judge, with the court's permission, Judge Hunter is going to introduce those photographs.
Permission to approach the witness.
Yes, you may.
Dr. Ross, would you look at what I've just handed you and let the jury know what those are?
These were photographs taken during the autopsy of Mr. Freeman.
They fairly inaccurately depict Mr. Freeman's body at the time that you performed the autopsy.
Yes, they do.
Your Honor, I would offer the photographs as a collective exhibit A through U.
Exhibit 15.
That's hard to get in there, Dr. Ross, so if you want to just leave it on top, that might be
We'll take care of
Okay.
it. Exhibit 15.
Dr. Ross,
No, there were several others taken during the autopsy.
And when you say several others, it's,
Actually, many others. I think
Okay.
it's in a couple hundred or so, if I remember right.
yeah. And what is the purpose when you take the photographs of taking that many photographs?
Well, with the external part of the body, we do some general overall documentation of just the general how the body first appears inside the body pouch when we open it up to look if there was any evidence of medical intervention or clothing on the body, and then we'll also do some photographs showing any injuries on the body, and we'll also photograph scars and tattoos of the body. And then when we do the internal examination portion, we'll take photographs usually to document injuries or abnormalities that we see on the inner surfaces of the body.
And that's exactly what I'm getting at, Dr. Ross. The photographs that we see here that we're about to show to the jury are photographs just of the outside of the body.
That's correct.
Okay, and obviously we are not going to show the jury anything from inside the body, but you documented all of that as well?
Yes.
And was that made part of your autopsy, not the written report, but that's all part of the medical record that you prepared at the time of the autopsy?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I have permission to show to the jury the photographs A through U?
You may publish those to the jury.
I'm showing you photograph A. Can you tell the jury what we see here?
That's a photograph of his legs, and of note are the presence of some abrasions or scrape marks, some healing abrasions on his knees.
And later on in the photographs, are we going to see a little bit more of a close-up of those particular injuries?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to photograph B. Can you tell the jury what we see here?
That's a photograph of his right hand, and it's just a general photograph to show what the inner surfaces of the hand look like.
Photograph C.
That's an area of the back, and it was actually showing that there's some areas of hyperpigmentation or some excessive or just a darker skin coloring, I should say, in the right mid-back region.
Can you tell the jury what that could be caused by?
Can be areas of old injury can cause that.
Photograph D.
This shows the lower lip. It's actually towards the top of the photograph is the lower lip being peeled back to show that there is some an area of abrasion, sort of that reddish area there, sort of a scrape mark on the inner surface of the lip. I'm sorry, that's actually the upper lip, not the lower lip.
And Dr. Ross, you previously were talking about, during the questions by General Funk, you're documenting not only fresh injuries, but also injuries that are a little bit older.
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what we mean by that, fresh injuries versus an older injury?
A more acute injury is an injury that may have occurred. Usually, when you look at it at the time of autopsy, you can tell that it's probably something that happened, roughly within about 24 hours or so of the time of injury. Will oftentimes have, no change or very little change in the appearance of it from the time of injury until sometimes maybe up to 24 hours later. That might be a more acute injury. Although, having said that, some wounds can start to show a type of effect later on, showing that it's already sort of an older injury. In other words, you can tell it's more than a few hours old. But some injuries you can't tell. And many injuries, upwards, I'd say, of roughly 24 hours, they may look the same. That's generally what we mean by sort of the, or I usually just describe an abrasion or another injury as being present, and then when it looks like it's been there longer and showing some evidence of healing or change, I will usually note that as a healing injury or a healing abrasion, which I did in his case. So I note those injuries, with the word healing, if they showed evidence that they've been there for a while, maybe beginning to show some evidence of healing. But for other injuries, I just leave the non-healing part off.
Understood. And this one would be one of the acute ones, like you've described.
Correct.
Show me photograph E.
Yeah, those are some scabbed scratches on the outer part of the left ankle. So those, those, in my opinion, were not acute because they were already scabbed.
Photograph F.
That one is usually just to show some scars on the back of his left hand.
Photograph G.
That's just a general photograph of the left hand. It's to mainly just show the inner surfaces of the palm.
Photograph H.
That's a photograph of the left knee, and it does show some healing abrasions or scrape marks on the left knee.
Photograph I.
That's a photograph taken shortly after we first opened up the body bag, showing the location of the defibrillator pads, which are those two large white structures on the chest. You can also see that the blue and white circular structures, those are EKG lead pads. You can see a little bit of that on the left-hand side as part of the cervical collar going around the neck. And in the uppermost part of the photograph, sort of in the crux of his left elbow region, you can see a bandage covering an IV entering that region.
And is that consistent with life-saving measures?
Yes.
Photograph J.
That is a photograph of the back of the right hand, again, primarily showing some scars on the back of his hand.
Photograph. We're having a glitch here. So this was K. So this was K that you just testified about, is that right?
Yes, that's the back of the right hand, showing a a localized area or scrape mark on the back of the right hand.
Sorry, folks, technology's awesome until it's not.
We have to, we can do it the old-fashioned way, you just walk over to the jury box and show them the picture.
Okay.
But we'll- Just depends on whether or not y'all can get that look.
Can we try for 2 minutes?
Whatever you need.
Maybe we can use, the timer that we have every week. You still have your timer?
That was not long, I was supposed to get up at 5:40 AM. And off at 5:40 PM.
All right.
No, I'm talking about his $4 timer. All right, nothing to see here. Okay. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Now we're at K. Can you tell us what we're seeing here?
Yeah, that's the back of the sort of showing the tops of the fingers of the right hand, and one can see on the middle finger there's an area, there's sort of an abrasion near the knuckle, and then near the knuckle where it joins the main part of the hand, and then on the ring and little finger is on the lower part of the photograph. Those are some healing abrasions on the tops of those fingers.
But on the middle finger joint and the finger next to, like, the ring finger, do those appear to be acute?
Yes.
Photograph L.
That's showing the upper back, and primarily where that ruler is located, that's the healing stab wound on the left upper back.
Photograph M.
That's an area of healing abrasions on the front of his right knee.
And does some of that appear to be acute?
To me, at least I described it all as being showing evidence of healing, and I believe that's the case in this particular photograph. They all, edges of them do all appear to be showing some evidence of early healing.
Photograph M.
That is a scab on the right, the left elbow, I believe.
Photograph N.
That is a photograph of the healing chest tube incision site on the left outer chest area, just underneath the armpit.
Okay, and my apologies for the record, that's actually photograph O. Photograph D.
That's another photograph of the right knee, showing the abrasions that we saw closer up in a previous photograph.
Photograph Q.
That's the laceration on the back of his head on the right side.
Is that the one that you testified went down to his scalp?
Went through the scalp, through the galea, down to the skull.
Down to the skull. I meant to say skull. Thank you for correcting me. Photograph R.
That is a photograph sort of the back of the neck, and one can see a few of those small, tiny abrasions there.
And Dr. Ross, I know that one's kind of hard to see. Is his head kind of like this in the picture?
Yes.
And this would be this part of his neck?
Yes.
Her neck was tilted to the left.
Photograph S.
That's another photograph of the back of the head, showing some other scrape marks or abrasions on the back of his head.
Photograph T.
That's an area of his back, showing some of the contusion that was described on his back.
And photograph U.
That's a photograph of the lower lip, and there's a little bit of one can sort of see on the that's the lower lip, and there's a little bit of an abrasion, sort of a more darker pink area in the middle part of the inner surface of the lip, showing an abrasion there.
And what can we see on his front right tooth?
It appears to be an incomplete tooth.
And that was not included on your report?
It was not described verbatim in the autopsy report, no.
And then finally, the diagram that was introduced as an exhibit as part of the autopsy. Can you tell the jury what you're looking at on this diagram?
This is a diagram that is made at the time of autopsy to show the locations of a lot of the injuries that are described in the autopsy report. It's primarily a schematic diagram to show roughly where the injuries are located.
That concludes.
All right. Cross-examine?
I think General Counsel has a couple more questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. That includes the photographs.
Includes the photograph.
Thank you. So for your notes, we have dinner reservations and Saturday. Haven't forgotten about you.
Dr. Rothbard. Before we launch into kind of finishing up, going through your summary interpretation, let me ask first so I don't forget. Do you remember that we did this demonstration?
Yes.
square feet and 240 pounds.
Yeah.
Follow the math here. If I was to lie on a cheap folding table that was 6 feet long and 3 feet wide, there would be 12 square feet with 240 pounds of pressure on top of that table.
Correct.
Right. If instead of lying on the table, I stood with on 1 foot in the middle of that table, and if my foot is 1 foot long and 6 inches wide, that would be half of a square foot, and there'd be 240 pounds on half of a square foot. So the pressure that would be right there would be 480 pounds of pressure on that point.
Correct.
Which is why that table, if I were to do that, would be much more likely to fold in on itself as opposed to maintain its position.
Yes, the number of pounds per square inch, if you will, are different in those two
We've gone
scenarios.
From 240 divided by 12, 20 pounds of force per square foot to 480 pounds per square foot.
Right.
And if instead of a foot, it was a knee, then it would be whatever pounds per square foot were put on that knee for the square footage of that knee, right onto that space that I was on top of.
Depends on, yeah, how much pressure or weight of the body was put onto the knee in that area.
Okay. All right, let me ask you a general question. How is it possible for eyelids to flutter in the minutes after a person dies?
Well, as part of the terminal, maybe not so long as minutes, but certainly as an individual is dying and in the final stages of death and the death process, there can be variations in the nerve inputs into various muscles because of changes in various components in the blood and the body's reaction to what may be causing it to die. So as it dies, then you can get those kinds of involuntary muscle movements, like a flutter of the eyelids.
How would it be incorrect to say that as chemical energy runs out, the fibers can twitch or spasm? Is that an incorrect statement? And if so, how?
No, if there's chemicals that are being released at the time of death that are causing that either are causing muscles directly or causing the nerves to the muscles to cause the muscles to react or flutter, that can happen.
What effect can just a relaxing tissue have on eyelids? The relaxing tissue as someone dies.
I wouldn't expect that. I mean, once the muscle has become relaxed after death, I wouldn't expect any additional movement other than what might, rigidity and sometimes rigor mortis that can develop. Then you begin to see a change, but it's usually a very gradual onset of that.
So you would say that the relaxing tissue would not cause an actual opening and closing?
I wouldn't expect it to, no.
Would nerve reflexes have an impact as well?
Yes.
They could contribute to a fluttering of the eyelids as
Yes.
someone dies?
Yeah.
Or right after death?
Yes.
If we go back to the first page of the autopsy report and Dina Sanford, investigator's narrative summary. We go to the 911 emergency services were contacted. Shelby County deputies, fire unit 30 responded to the scene. After all life-saving efforts were exhausted, a systole was confirmed at 1727 by paramedic Patterson. What does the term systole or systole mean?
That means that there was no longer any electrical activity in the heart and that there was no heartbeat that was occurring. So they would assess to see that there's no audible heart sounds, no heartbeat, and an EKG would basically be flatline. That's what asystole refers to.
All right. And so, at least for purposes of the report, we know when the fire department said, hey, we confirmed the asystole, but that could also go back to, we don't know for sure when that happened.
Well,
Are we sure?
he's asking, yes, sir. I'll,
Do we know when the asystole actually came into being?
We know when he confirmed it at 1727. I don't know when it occurred prior to that.
Okay. Now let's go back, or let's go to the page 7. Can you read on the third paragraph, the first line? Can you read the first sentence?
Based on the autopsy findings, reported circumstances, and available investigative information, the cause of death is attributed to exacerbation of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease due to physical altercation and subdual.
Okay. Autopsy findings you did.
Correct.
That's all of you. Reported circumstances and available investigative information. What is that?
That refers to additional information that I received about the circumstances of the case, usually from law enforcement. It includes, of course, a little bit, too, of what our investigator, Dina Sanford, had in her narrative, as well as other available investigative information may include any other information provided to me by law enforcement, and in this particular case it includes a video documentation of what occurred in the jail up to the time of Mr. Freeman's death associated with this particular event.
So some of the basis for this autopsy summary and interpretation comes from what sheriff's office employees told your investigator or told the TBI agent that came out to the scene.
Yes.
So that's essentially hearsay to you that leads to this 3-paragraph summary.
Yes.
So, the first paragraph is pretty much, first paragraph, it starts with the decedent was a 33-year-old male inmate. Do you have personal knowledge of any of the sentences in that first paragraph? Or did that all come from hearsay?
That all comes from my review of information provided to me by law enforcement and medical records that I obtained from the jail.
Which is what other people said in those records?
Yes.
Somebody else said, or somebody else said, somebody else said?
Yes.
Right. Okay. But even if you discount that, you've got your autopsy, what you saw when you did the autopsy.
Yes.
Right? Including the atherosclerotic coronary issues.
Yes.
And you also had a chance to review the video, is that right?
Yes.
And so you saw the video before you wrote this report?
Yes.
All right. In the second sentence of the third paragraph, a probable, can you read that?
A probable psychotic disorder is likely a contributing condition.
That's consistent with what you said on the first page of this document and the second page of the document. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then if you could read the last sentence.
The manner of death is classified as homicide for state vital record epidemiologic purposes and is not meant to definitively indicate criminal intent.
Do you ever opine as to criminal intent in an autopsy report?
No.
How often have you ever written that second phrase is classified as for state vital record epidemiologic purposes and is not meant to definitively indicate criminal intent.
Not often, but I have done it before.
When you drafted this, did you have that second part in there?
No, to my knowledge, I did not.
Okay. Why did you put that, and when did you put that?
As I recall, a member of the Shelby County DA's office asked me to clarify what I meant by homicide.
And so you changed your report pursuant to that request?
Yes.
But it's still a true statement.
Yes.
And you have used it in the past in other autopsies.
Yes.
You could use it in every autopsy, couldn't you?
Yes.
Is there any significance to the fact that this was added in as far as what you classified this as in the 5 different types of causation as far as that this is a homicide?
No.
Are you able to, or what percentage in your cause of death? You got three. You got exacerbation of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease due to physical altercation and subdual. Are you able to assign a percentage to any of those 3?
Well, it's sort of all because of the underlying cardiovascular disease that is a pre-existing condition that is a risk factor. And then you have the subsequent events, that is the temporal occurrence of an altercation and subdual in the setting of pre-existing disease, that then he dies at the end of that altercation subdual event. And because of what occurs during an altercation and subdual with increased activity of the body, the increased then subsequent demands of his heart, because of what is occurring during the altercation and subdual, his body is seeking an increase in oxygen input and an increase in blood flow, so it's asking the heart to beat faster to deliver more blood to tissues that need it, and as a result of that, the heart is being stressed and gets to the point where it can no longer deliver the necessary oxygen to its own tissues and will give out. So the reason that this occurred was because of exacerbation of his underlying natural disease that occurred as a result of the altercation and subdual that occurred prior to his death, and that led to his death. As to how much of it was due to the altercation initially I think on the lower level where he was when he first got out of the cell, as I saw on the video, and then subsequently went up to another level and was finally subdued on that level, and the process of what went through during the subdual, I cannot ascertain which of those was the more primary reason why that exacerbated his heart. To my opinion, both were capable of having an impact on the heart, but I cannot say, was it primarily the altercation was, say, like 70% and the subdual was 30%, or the subdual was 80%. I cannot divide that up. I cannot assign a percentage. I just know that collectively those two had an impact, but I don't know which one may have been the greater one.
If the cause of death had just been atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, what would the manner of death be?
I would have certified it as a natural death.
Because of the physical altercation and subdual, then you put manner of death as what?
Homicide.
And then homicide, I believe you said, was due to other individuals.
Correct.
have reviewed the video, is that correct?
Yes.
Was Gershun Freeman, were you able to see indications that Gershun Freeman was alive at the time that these two men put him on his back and they sat on him?
Connection, question seems back to on, I think that's it.
Let me ask it in a different way.
Did you see indications that Gershun Freeman was alive at the time that he was subdued and these two men sat on his back?
Yes.
Well, y'all put some
Freeman was alive at the time that he was subdued by these two men.
Yes.
Why would a person who was in a prone position, or let me think of a better way to ask the question. If a person who is in a prone position with weight on his back rolls to his side, what effect would that have on that person as far as their ability to breathe?
It should improve their ability to
If they are then immediately placed back in a prone position with weight on their back, would that then make it harder for the person to breathe?
move. It may.
Is it fair to say that Mr. Gershun Freeman was alive at the time that these two men subdued him, but it was clear that he was dead within minutes of the time that they subdued him?
From my review of the video, at the time that the subdual process on the upper floor where he died, when that subdual process began, he showed signs that he was still alive, that I could see in the video. Some minutes after that subdual process ended, it was, I did not see any obvious evidence of life, but the video quality was such I couldn't entirely rule it out, and I rely upon the medical personnel's notes to determine that death was pronounced.
How many times have you ever been called upon to review an autopsy performed by another forensic pathologist?
Well, we have partly an internal review process that we do anyway as part of a quality assurance, where we regularly review a number of our colleagues' reports. And so in that capacity, we review each other's reports quite a number of times. I have on rare occasion been asked by an outside agency to review a report from an outside agency and make a comment on it. That's not very often and wasn't a regular part of my position.
When you do that, what information do you obtain as you are making that review?
Usually try to get the same information that the original pathologist had. Start with a reviewing of the report and also obtaining any of the photographs that they used, as well as any other additional investigative information that they may have acquired, and try to look at it you know, in as complete a manner as the original pathologist may have looked at.
Are you aware that Dr. Lee from Nashville did a review of this autopsy?
Yes.
In this situation? Do you know Dr. Lee?
Yes.
How do you know him?
We're colleagues in the sense that we're both forensic pathologists, and I know he was the chief medical examiner in Nashville for a number of years and corresponded with him from time to time on various issues.
Do you respect his expertise?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that sometimes you disagree?
Yes.
Do you respect him as a person?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, for relevance?
No, since he's going to be called as a witness, I'll allow the question.
What are your thoughts on his honesty?
I believe that he's honest in the manner in which he addresses an issue and evaluates at a conclusion based upon what he perceives to be the relevant issues.
If I could have just a second.
Yes.
Judge, those are my questions.
All right, any cross-exam?
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes, ma'am. Doctor, thank you very much. And I know this one upsets you. I'm not going to allow you to talk to the lawyer, okay?
I understand.
They're not allowed to talk to you, and we'll see you
Right.
in the morning.
Okay, very good. All right.
I don't want y'all looking at any of that stuff tomorrow. You're going to take Sunday off and leave the clipboards in the jury room.
Yeah.
So we won't have those. All right, anybody got any exhibits over there? All right. Thank you very much. Please don't discuss the case yourselves or anybody else, and we'll see y'all Monday morning at 10. Thank you. Don't party too much this